Good God, conversations that matter about faith and public life. I'm your host, George Mason, and we are continuing our series about immigration and the challenges of this present day, especially for people of faith, in response to what's happening to people in our country who we will generally call migrants, and we'll talk more about definitions in a moment. But to do so, I'm delighted to be able to introduce to you our guest for this episode, Sandra Avalos. Sandra, thank you for being with us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So Sandra is a community organizer, something that for a lot of people came to an awareness when Barack Obama ran for president, that he was a community organizer. What in the world is that?
Yeah.
And what would you tell people a community organizer is?
So I actually started organizing right after college. And for me, it was just, how do we as community come together and support one another and learn together about the different structures in place, anywhere from how to attend a city hall meeting to, how to go speak to Congress. I have had the opportunity to go out to DC and speak out there. Also, what does it look like being in front of press and speaking? And navigating for myself, even both languages, in Spanish and in English. And then navigating conversations even with my family. I remember the first time that I was in front of a camera for Univision. By the time I made it home, my family thought I was running for office. And so I was like, no. That's not how it works. I was like, I believe in storytelling and I believe in the power of my stories. So I definitely... part of the work that I did was encouraging folks to share their story. And so as I was navigating on myself, learning how to do that, I was also doing it on the ground and then empowering other folks to do so.
Wonderful. Now, you've applied that to your relationship to your church, which is St. Thomas the Apostle Episcopal Church in Dallas.
Yes.
And St. Thomas, we recall, was the one who sort of doubted, right? And so your congregation has a lovely phrase about themselves. They call themselves
the doubters.
The doubters.
Yes.
Really the doubters of great faith, but the doubters for short. And it's a really kind of neat title that they live into because they live their faith with a level of humility and service. And I know that because your rector, Christopher Thomas, is just so wonderful at embodying that. But your congregation decided that it wanted to become active in the community, and you made the decision that you would focus on immigration, right?
Correct.
So tell us more about that.
So I, as a community organizer, we have been, since the new administration came into power, we have organized to do Know Your Rights and Power of Attorney. So I was going and reaching out to different churches and see who will host us to be able to have a safe space where families can come in. And so as I was doing the work, I was reaching out to one of my mentors, and she was like, "Hey, I really think you should get in contact with Christopher." And he's the one that reached out first, actually. He was the one that was like, yes, please utilize the space. And, to be honest, I had been a little bit away from faith for quite some time. And so in this, it kind of thinks God does his work really beautiful. We were able to connect just to start the project of the Know Your Rights and Power of Attorneys, but then our relationship, just human beings interacting and doing the work together, kind of created a bond. And even for my son, he was actually the one that said, "I think we should start going to St. Thomas." And so that's how organically the relationship began being built. And then I disclosed that I was DACA. I was very afraid of what was going to happen to myself and other folks in the area that were under DACA. We knew we were under rating from the ruling from the courts to see if even DACA was going to continue in Texas. And so I was really, sharing that. And he's like, "Tell us how we can help you." And so we started conversations, we started meeting, and I told him, "Hey, I'm a community organizer at heart. It looks like us organizing here, folks at church. More than ever, we need allies to be, in the front of the lines of some of this work." And so in conversations, we talked about what are some key roles that we believe are going to help us in the movement. And so we started having those conversations and creating this alliance, and now slowly has spread out to other churches, and we're excited.
Lovely. Before we get into that, you've already mentioned that you are DACA.
Correct.
Okay. So let's clarify what that means and tell us more about your story, because I think it's an important aspect of this entire continuum of the status of people who are not citizens who are living in this country.
Yes. So my family and I immigrated to the U.S. and arrived here in August of 1996.
And you were 7 years old.
I was 7 years old when I arrived, and so my family was like, okay, we're going to enroll you in school. So the four of us were enrolled in school. You went, as typical kids, we went through elementary school, middle school. For high school, I went to Townview. That's where I learned that I wanted to service, to be service to the community. For some time, I grew up very Catholic, so I thought I was going to be a nun. So, I was thinking graduate from high school and, going to the convent. But I remember right before one of my mentors, who was a nun also, said, hey, I don't think you should go into the convent. And I was like, why? I'm doing everything great. I'm going to retreats. I go to confession. I'm here at the convent. I feel like every day I go to church with y'all. And she was like, I don't think so. Because if you go in there, you're going to stir the pot, and I don't think we're ready for you.
Oh.
And literally, I remember that, and I was just like, what? I can listen. I can follow the rules. But little did I know what she saw in me. And she genuinely saw that, that I had this fire in me, and that I had a fire for justice, and that was going to bring me into where I am today. So I was very disappointed. She left, and right after that, I ended up getting married and had my son. Went off to college, and then after that, I learned about the movement. I learned that right before I was finishing my associates and ready to transfer to University of North Texas, where I received my bachelor's. At the time, I was completely undocumented, but I've heard of the movement of the dreamers, and how the dreamers had won in-state tuition for the state of Texas, and how dreamers have continued to organize, and how dreamers were working in the Obama's campaign, and that we're gonna, help them get into presidency so we can pass the famous Dream Act. And so I remember hearing that, and as I was going through my associate's degree, and then Obama wins, and we hear in 2012 that he passed a program that would allow folks like myself to get a work authorization program and to be able to be in this country without fear of deportation. And so then I was like, what? That's crazy. I remember by that time, unfortunately, my dad had already been arrested and deported. So I remember he called me from Mexico, and he was just like, hey, are you going to apply for it, or what are you thinking? And I'm like, this is fresh. We're waiting to see, because, basically now we're going to come out of the shadows and tell the government that we're here. And so I was like, that's a little nerve-wracking, because not only are you disclosing about yourself, but you're also disclosing about your family now. And so it's like, this has to be a family decision. I'm going to let people know that, I also have a mom that's still undocumented. I also have siblings that are undocumented. And so it was kind of like, let me go ahead and finish my undergrad, and then we'll figure that out. So I finished my undergrad, and right around that time, I was like, okay, I told myself that once I finished it, I was going to apply. So I apply, and as I was trying to see, what was the community that was around there, I learned of this organization called the North Texas Dream Team. And that they were a grassroots organization that had created a system in which folks can come in and get assistance in completing the DACA application. And then sometimes they will give out scholarships to pay the $465. And then you will have attorneys that will come and do, dot the I's, cross the T's before you send it out. And I was like, this is amazing. This is community coming together. And I remember I attended the first workshop, and I saw that people would even donate cases of water. You have moms that would cook some rice and beans for the volunteers, and and I was just like, this is beautiful. This is amazing. So I remember that I was talking to one of the co-founders, Marco Malagon, and he was like, we won DACA, right? And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, we're the ones that made DACA happen. We were the ones that did hunger strikes. We were the ones that were doing civil disobedience. Some of us were even getting arrested and deported. And we were showing the Obama administration that even dreamers can get deported. And so I was like, whoa. I was like, that opened up my eyes to see people power for the first time.
Yes.
And then he invited me and my son to go out to Austin as work was being done against SB4. So we were learning about how SB4 was a show me your papers law that was going to come into play, how the Abbott's had signed it on a Sunday. I was like, not on the Lord's Day, like. And so I remember we went out there, we did an action. I showed up to the Capitol. I walked in, and for the folks that have been out there, you will see the different floors. For me, it was powerful because each floor was full with hundreds of people yelling, undocumented, unafraid. And I was just like, what is this? And I remember that I was some kind of way, I was with one of my friends, and at the time now, my best friend, I told her, keep an eye on my son, I'll be right back. And I walked in as they were having a hearing, and I saw people drop banners, and young people chanting, sin papeles, sin miedo, undocumented, unafraid, and the representative from Richardson area yelling into the crowd that to the Texas Rangers, get them, they're undocumented, get them, I'm going to call ICE on all of y'all. And I was like, whoa. And the people stood ground, like they were not moving until slowly the Texas Rangers were able to get them out and all of that. But I remember I walked out and that was it. Like the rest is history. I think that for me, it was just like.
That was the moment.
That was the moment.
Yeah.
I became
an activist.
Yeah. And then from there, I just started traveling to D.C., speaking to Congress, doing civil disobedience and all of that.
Let's just stop and back up for a moment and say you are a dreamer, and people may not really understand what that means. So when we talk about the roughly 538,000 people who are in this country, who are so-called dreamers, what that means is that you were brought to this country, you came to this country without making that decision for yourself. And so you find yourself in the country, and you have grown up in the country nearly 30 years now, paying taxes, contributing to society, going to school, doing the things that you've done, but you don't have legal status. And so when we talk about people like you, we often talk about you as being fairly innocent in that respect. But people often want to go straight to who's guilty then too, right? And this is a sensitive matter as well. Tell us about how important language is.
Yes.
When we talk about people who are undocumented, about how they came, about what their status is, so that we can honor the dignity and protect the people from being unfairly labeled.
Yeah. Thank you for that, because I think that's one of the conversations we have been having for some years now about the importance of even verbiage of they brought her here. No, I like to say that I came here with my family. Even the verbiage of, illegal versus undocumented, all these different verbiages that have been used to criminalize folks is a strategic way of finding ways to take away the humanity of folks, right?
Yes.
And when we take away the humanity of folks, it's much easier for us to other them and be able to put them in cages, other them and be able to see that they have hundreds of kiddos, that have just experienced a traumatic experience, like it is crossing, like the way I crossed. And the only difference between that kiddo that's in that cage and me is that the laws are different. Now we have used verbiage. We have been able to criminalize folks for as simple as crossing, and now we keep them in cages. Versus when I came in, that I was 7 years old, and because there was a different structure in place, I was never put in a cage. I was never kept there in the cold, away from my mom, away from my siblings, and so that's why it's important that we don't dehumanize people. We don't use verbiage that dehumanizes people, because that's a much easier way to create harm to us.
So I think you said something that's important also in the midst of this, and that is that circumstances were different when you came versus the way they are being treated today. And yet the law was not really different. It was the enforcement of the law.
Exactly.
Right? I think it's really important for people to understand that the goalposts keep shifting. And people who are migrants in this country are thought of differently, even from whatever administration is, or whatever the spirit in the moment is of the American people, and yet their legal status hasn't changed, the law hasn't changed, nothing has changed, but you feel the weight of that different shift and the way law enforcement operates, right?
And I think to highlight that is that, let's start with just the infrastructure of ICE, for example. ICE was not an entity that was active when I came in, right? ICE came in after September 11, right? And ICE first originally started so-called to be able to hold terrorists.
Right.
And now the same entity that is supposed to hold terrorists is now holding children and youth and moms. And so let's start with that, and how it is an infrastructure that is created essentially to make sure that the folks that have invested get their money's worth back. That is what the whole entity is about, right? People that have invested, they want their money back, and some, right? And so I think we definitely have
invested in what?
Invested in the infrastructure. You have folks that are invested from the phone companies that give accessibility, where you have technology that's invested in there. So you have folks that pay so that they can make phone calls. It's a $52. There's also ways that people can have access to a tablet where you can get text messages, where you can do face calls, and all of those are either 20 cents to 15 cents a message. The FaceTimes, they can list up to increments of 30 minutes. After those 30 minutes,
So what you're saying is the more people are apprehended and have to go through the access then of these tools of technology, the more the people who've invested in the technology gets paid. And that includes private prisons as well, and detention centers.
Exactly.
So
they're run like private prisons. And for every person that's in there per day, there's a quota. Filling up that space is a quota. So you have people that are held in a cell, minimum 30 to 60 people in one cell, human beings that are being held.
Which also goes to the bond question, right? So for people to be out on bond means that they're not going to these detention centers, they're not going to prisons, they're not filling up those beds where people who've invested in those are getting paid for every person that's there. So therefore, when we have Texas decides to say there'll be no more bonds, right? What they're really saying is, in effect, whether you are a danger to society or not, we have to fill up these detention centers and these prisons.
Correct.
Yeah. So I think it's important for people to realize that there are economic incentives that are at work in this, and this is not merely about legal status.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Because you're having folks that are being apprehended at the court hearings.
Right.
If it's about doing it the right way, then why are you arresting people that are in the middle of their hearings? They're in the middle of their process, that are waiting to hear if their asylum seek application is going to be processed, if their U visa is going to be processed.
Okay, you mentioned asylum seeking and court hearings. So let's remind people that the law says that if someone has come to this country and is fleeing violence and persecution or persecution, and is fearful for their life, they can cross into this country without going through the immigration process, step foot and declare that they are seeking asylum, and be immediately put into the immigration system where a hearing will take place.
Correct.
And it will decide whether they have a right to be an asylee and to stay in the country, and if not, they will go. But now we have decided, without changing the law, that we will not hear any asylum claims. So we have all these people who have not broken the law when they crossed in to declare for asylum, but we have said that they have broken the law because we won't accept any more asylum claims. Am I wrong about that?
No, unfortunately, that's the state that we're in. And even folks that have entered, a year ago, 2 years ago in that process, now we're saying, nope, we're going to kick them out automatically. If they've been here less than 2 years, we're going to kick them out. And so it's like we're supposed to give them parole. We're supposed to give them an opportunity for a hearing, for them to show the evidence of that they, in effect, are fearful going back to their home country.
Right.
And that it is our responsibility to provide that support.
So when you talk about court hearings, what's happening now is that people who are doing everything the law tells them to do and going to their court hearings, some of them don't ever get out of the building again, right? They are apprehended after their court hearing because ICE is present in the corridors waiting for them to come out, which is why part of your immigration, interfaith migration alliance work is around training people to be court observers. Explain what happens when you do that.
So we have created an infrastructure to support folks that are getting ready to have a hearing. We have reached out to community. We have asked support of allies to come and bear witness to some of the things that are happening. And we have created so that folks can plug into a role wherever they feel more comfortable, right? Does it look like you just help folks be guided into which floor they need to go to, which courtroom they need to go to? Does it look like you sit with the kiddos that are there along with their parents? Does it look like you can go into the court and take notes of what's happening? We need to also start, recording what are we seeing in the different court hearings. Does it look like, and these are definitely for the folks that are more stronger in spirit, but does it look like you go in and actually record when someone's being apprehended? A lot of the times folks are surprised that they're being apprehended, and 9 times out of 10, either a family member is downstairs waiting for them, or in the car waiting for them, or at home waiting for them. And so, or some folks, just don't know, and family members are left wondering where their loved one is.
Their cars are left there, their phones are taken, their families don't know what's taken place, where they have gone, how to contact them, and they're not shown due process, given a phone call, any of those things. And
with the government shutdown, the ICE locator is also down, so we're not able to locate family members in the ICE database either.
Okay, so all these things people just need to be aware of. And what you have found, I understand, is that the more people are present in the court and in the hallways supporting those who are coming for their hearings, the less likely it is ICE will apprehend them.
Yes.
The fewer people are around, the more likely they will apprehend someone and take them. Now, what do you make of that?
It's all about intimidation. It's all about intimidation, the tactics that are used, the aggression that is used, and it leaves even the folks that are sitting there waiting to go in next for their hearing very traumatized, very, very distraught to see that someone was just apprehended. And does that mean that once I get out, does that mean I'm going to be apprehended? Right. And so it's definitely something where, even for us, it's a hit and miss. We cannot tell who's going to be apprehended and who's not.
Right.
So we can't even guarantee either or. And even like for Christopher, Father Christopher, that has had some time to be there, even for him, it was just, can I sit and pray with you?
Yes.
Can I sit here and be in community with you
Right.
as we wait to see what unfolds?
Right.
Yeah.
So there are people who are probably disturbed by this, who are listening to your story and of the things that you're saying. Maybe they're alarmed. Maybe they didn't know everything that is really taking place. And maybe they say, I'd really like to do something. I'd like to get involved somehow. What would you say to them?
You know, get activated in your churches. For at least for me, it was being vocal about my experience. It was being vocal about, you know, that I need that support, that I need community, that I truly believe in, that it's gonna take us. You know, in Spanish we have a saying, "El pueblo salva el pueblo." The community saves the community, and I truly believe that. I truly believe that it is gonna be folks like yourself and Father Christopher to be vocal and to uplift our humanity, because that's one of the key things that I want us to not forget in this moment, that at the end of the day, we're all humans and we're all deserving of a dignified life, right? And so I think that the main thing I will ask is that start with that. Start activating your church. I'm 1,000% sure that there's like-minded folks around you that y'all can say, hey, like, let's get trained on going to court hearings, or hey, there's a demonstration going on, let's go and support that. Hey, like, they're going to be doing phone calling. There's different campaigns going on locally. I mean, just locally here, we had our friend Omar Salazar that was picked up by ICE in Lubbock. We had a huge campaign asking for donors, asking for people to call,
Right.
asking for letters of support. Now we're in the middle of asking people to just write to him as he's standing strong to continue to be in this country. So there's different ways for folks to do their part wherever they feel most comfortable.
And if anyone would like to be trained as a court observer, or to join one of the task forces or committees how would they contact you?
So we do have it where folks can call us directly at St. Thomas, and there that we will plug them into the other committees. There's folks who are very specific, interested in the court hearings. We do have Vecinos, Unidos, DFW. We have a document where you can register, and then we will contact you to let you know when the next training is.
And I think it's important for people to realize you don't have to know what you're doing to begin with, because there's training that will take place, and you can then be part of a community of people, and you can find out, you can decide when you're available and how you can plug in as a result of that. St. Thomas, the Apostle Episcopal Church in Dallas, and Sandra Avalos, thank you for sharing your story, for your good community organizing, for your passion for humanity, and for your faith. We're very grateful. We're glad to be in partnership with you in this important effort. And
so much.
for all of you who have stayed with us through this conversation, until next time, keep the faith.
Thank you so much.